Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and today I have a video in the Tier 8 Russian destroyer, the Oggy. And this is the second time I had to go through this ship, having gone through it when it was in the main line prior to the split, and I didn't enjoy it too much when it was at a lower tier. Yet, now that it's higher up, I've found a way in it. And I think part of that comes down to just the torps. 10-kilometer torpedoes, 6.1 detectability, means you've got a huge window to be able to fire those torpedoes at anyone. And with a 12-kilometer gun range, even though you're limited to 2 turrets, I've found ways to do damage with them, relying a lot on smoke, but also just doing a bit of the good old gunboat line version of stay at your max range and just keep shooting. The big downside being all your gun power is concentrated in 2 turrets, and I have fairly regularly found myself missing at least one of them, which I guess on the plus side means you're never tempted to show your broadside again, either sailing towards or away from an enemy, but in a DD on DD fight, it really removes a lot of gun power. Now in this one, you can see I'm playing alongside Carrier Hornet and Doom 117, and they've brought an Enterprise and a Oggy, and things worked out really well for us. We are top tier, so we should be able to do a lot as a division here. You can see, looking at the enemy team, they don't have a div. We're the only one in this game, and that, in a sense, gives us an unfair advantage. We're able to coordinate the attack of 3 ships, while the enemy team doesn't have any of that kind of teamwork going on. Now, that's not to say this game's a gimme. No game is a gimme, and anyone who has played ranked knows that, because you'll get into a ranked match where your team is entirely made up of players who have gone far in, say, Clan Wars. Every team is a Hurricane League team. You think you've got it in the bag against a bunch of unknowns, and it just gets thrown away. And that's the funny thing about competitive games and ships in general, is nothing is certain. You could be up by 5 ships, have every cap, and lose the game because of the way people behave when they think it's in the bag. You start to just play a little recklessly, thinking, we've got this, we can just walk all over the enemy team. So early on, I decide I want to get right up in the middle of the map, try to detect the enemy team, and get my guns fired at things. Now, all I spotted was the turrets, and sadly, the second I smoked to start using my guns, there's no longer vision. Flip side though, planes couldn't do anything to me. And that's always, as I've said many times, the nicest thing about playing with a carrier, is you at least know where your support is going to be and where you can expect to have it and not have it. Now, I'm obviously being pretty bold here, but I know Carrier just took out the enemy's fighter squadron, and they're kind of floating up just to the north of me. Well, the friendly fighters. So I'm not super worried yet about the enemy Lex. Obviously his planes are going to come back, so I don't want to get too dug in here. Throw some torps off at the Leander and decide this is as far as I go. I've spotted a very decent chunk of the enemy team by coming this far south, and we kind of know where they're going. And fortunately, our team's going there too. You can see a big chunk of the enemy force has gone out wide in the Molotov and Leander, and they're up against a couple BBs and a couple cruisers, and ideally we should see them disappear pretty quick. Unfortunately, our Queen Elizabeth's kind of getting worked down. Things aren't going great out there. So my plan is to sneak into these islands, really use the land as a cover. And much like the Tashkent game I shared a while back, a destroyer and islands, they can be your life at times. If you know how to use that land to really protect yourself and spread your torpedoes out a bit, when you're actually sending them in the water, you can keep control over the enemy team pretty effectively. Now, obvious downside here is I'm not a great gunboat, and that's what this line is about. It's supposed to be about, really, it's torpedoes. It's the more stealthy torp firing line. Now, I shot at that Senyang, and that's got me detected, at least for a moment. until enemy sails behind cover. And for a moment here, I am going to get spotted. And you can see I just throw both racks of the torps right into that smoke because the DD ran aground. Reasonably, I think it's backing up. And you can see Carrier coming in with the torpedo bombers too. We're really doing everything we can to try to put some hurt down on this destroyer. Now, I don't feel a huge threat from the DD in the form of torps because he simply can't hit me. And the bonus to firing at that Shenyang was, well, we miss. There's a whole bunch of enemy ships over on the other side here. And, well, the Bayern eats one right up the butt. And I pick up my first kill, 11,000 damage in. And that puts us slightly in the lead as far as kills go. Enemy teams lost 2 BBs to our 1. And then we pick up another kill there in the form of Leander. So things aren't over. The one thing I really do enjoy about the Zognovoid, though, is the torpedoes reload fairly quickly. Another 30 seconds, and I've got the Shenyang. And I kind of brought this up when I was talking about ranked. If you're in these Pan-Asian DDs, and you put yourself in a position where an enemy destroyer has you one-on-one, close range, you're at a big disadvantage. And sure, I'm not a gunboat DD, but he has no way of preventing me from pushing him, so I do just that. I come around the corner, shoot him a couple times, and with my torps ready again, all it's going to take is one rack right into his side, and he's a goner. And this is precisely what I was talking about in the ranks scenario. If you're going to sail the Yu Yang, you have to be aware of where your support is and where your enemy destroyers are, because if you get yourself too close, and really too close in this context is, you know, you and the enemy destroyer sharing an island as your cover. One of you on either side, he's going to be able to roll around that corner and drop torps into you, and there's not a lot you can do to stop him. Sure, you might have radar if you've gone with that setup, you might have smoke, but neither of those really help you from a DD at that close a range. In this situation, you can see both of us had each other hard detected inside 2 kilometers. No way we're going dark. So I just made the commitment. I'm going around. I know my torps are almost ready. I'll engage them with guns, and then I'll put the torps in the water. Very thankful that I only needed 1 set there, as it leaves me another set for these enemy ships over here. And interestingly, I am going to throw these torps at the New Mexico. I know it's still got the Duke York targeted, but as with all replays, for some reason when you're switching targets with torpedoes selected, it never shows in the replay. So I get the torpedoes off, they're fired at the Mexico. We've got this Hipper out in front, and you can see Carrier Hornet there with his torpedo bombers going in for a strike as well. And really here, I am just waiting for my smoke. I want to start shooting. And you can see me looking back and forth at both these ships. I target the New Mexico, because once again, that's where my torps are at. I'm hoping I can light a fire here, force him to damage control, so maybe I can get a flood that goes the distance. My second rack of torpedoes is available, but I don't want to use them yet. Having had Carrier go in there with the drop, you can see the Hipper's turned away. I really just didn't want to rush a whole bunch of torpedoes in the same spot. And more often I've found that if you have a ship on the enemy team that's seen a whole bunch of torpedoes go sailing past, they tend to lose count and think they're safe. Now, watching the most recent rack I sent clearly doesn't look like any of them are going to hit. I fired basically at the lead marker and the New Mexico accelerated, but I did get that 1 torpedo on the Hipper and have a flood going. So the Hipper, well, she's about to tick her way to death. And side on New Mexico, I've decided I'm going to use AP here. Something I've been making a point of doing a little more in my destroyers. And with my lower rate of fire, I've just found that I can get some half decent damage out of the AP if I'm hitting the right spot on the ship. You know, we're just getting about 1,000 to 2,000 a volley with AP there. HE, not as much. A lot of the shells end up squashing or just not doing the same level of damage. But with more torpedoes in the water, my interest is back in trying to light a fire. Try to get them to use that damage control and waste it so that when the torpedoes get there, I have a chance at a flood. And he does just that. I light a fire and instantly that New Mexico hits the damage control. So I'm pretty much golden at this point. And I am talking to Carrier. I'm talking to Doom, telling them, hey, you know, my torps are looking good on this New Mexico. Doom, he's about to have to turn broadside onto you. I've also been telling him that, you know, he's damage control. And that all kind of works together, you know. Doom at this point is waiting for that broadside. But it never comes because the torpedoes do connect, and I pick up a 4th kill. To 65,000 damage, basically having just worked from the same islands the whole map. Meanwhile, our team pushed down kind of the 3-4 line, cleared the enemies out, and we're into their cap. So the bulk of the enemy team, or what's left, 3 of them, they really don't have an option here. They've got to try to contest that cap. They've got to go for the resets. The Leander and the Lexington, they're pretty committed to doing that. This Turpit's kind of just sailing away on its own, probably hunting for some damage, and that's perfect for me. I open fire, not getting a lot of damage out of that HE. You can see Carrier's got the torps in the water, so I'm just waiting. My torps are ready. I am just hoping that he damage controls so that I have a chance to put torps in the water. And with my smoke available, definitely going to use it. 7 kilometers, not exactly the most resilient ship. Sadly, Turpitz goes down. Doom finishing him off. So, my Kraken, not really going to happen. The Leander's somewhere out here, so I'm not willing to sit and smoke. Also, I have that opportunity to spot him. And I'd probably be best to load some AP here, because the Leander is very thinly armored. If I get it into detection range, the Kraken could still be on the board. You can see our enemy Lexington there, just getting peppered by the allies. We're getting rather close to capping out. So you really hope that this enemy Leander Salty Dog puts some shells into cap and resets it. Because as much as you say, you know, no cap, kill all, there's situations where you really want that. Sadly, we are going to cap the enemy team out. And it always feels good when things work out in the end. And for me, this one did, despite having a fairly slow start and me worrying about my ability to do much in this match with carriers present. I just wasn't sure I was going to be able to get those stealth drops to really put some damage down. And while I didn't do huge damage at 67,000, it's still a good chunk, got 4 kills, and really claimed a part of the map as my own, taking home 275,000 credits and 17,000 XP because of camos and flags. Games like this get you through ships very quickly, and it did not take me long to run through the Oggy. It was basically sitting down with these guys in one night, and I got through the ship. And that's a good feeling. Sadly, hasn't gone quite as well in the Udaloy. Just a ship that I haven't figured out, because you go from these kind of stealthier torpedo boats all of a sudden back to a gunboat. It doesn't sync up with the line. And end of the day, you can see how the damage happened, and really the one I'll point out is against that Pan-Asian DD is you cannot put yourself in a position like he did in close to another destroyer, because you just push them. And if you don't have support, in this case he didn't, I was able to just roll around the corner and take him out without too much trouble. And for my effort, I took home 129,000 credits, the 17,000 experience, a win, and a big step towards the Udaloy. Anyways, I hope everyone enjoyed this. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up or subscribing it. As always, I am Qckslvrslash. I'll have another for you all later.